Okay, so this is an ad hoc video. I don't know how it's going to go. What it is I'm going to be talking about winter camping gear pretty extensively. I'm going to go through my whole list. I just got back a couple days ago from camping with my son. We only went for 2 nights. He's 13, so I didn't want to bring him out for too long. First night was 4 degrees, second night was -10, and he did fine. But before I put all my gear away, I thought I'd make a little video because I just haven't done that before. I have a pulk, and which is custom fit, not custom fit, but it's a custom pulk. And basically what it is you have a harness here around your waist. It's got cotter pins in here as connectors. It's got bendy poles. And then if you're making your own, which a lot of people do, this is a critical point. You want this to be fully stable, all right? And you want it to sit right on your hips. If it rises up onto your stomach, then you're pulling with your stomach. And we like hack through the woods, and we go out. We don't go straight over things much, so we're always cruising around. Which means this crotch harness, it actually goes down through the crotch and holds this down from popping up on you. And so it keeps it really firm, and you can just crank around trees and all that. And I broke one of these one of the times. So the other half of it is here. The other half connects to the bottom of my pulk, or the front of my pulk. Connects with a cotter pin. I just have a rubber band through there. It connects to a cotter. Usually you'd have a cotter pin down there. There's other loop ones that you can get, but I found that they grab onto branches because we hack through the woods. And also when you do it, make sure the cotter is facing inward, because if your cotter pin is out here, it's going to grab onto the branches. All right, so then this is, I'm going to take off my lower harness. My upper harness usually connects to it, which is this. And what this is you attach another tab there to your sled. So you're actually pulling from the back of your back, and then you have 2 pulls on your hips. So you have a 3-point deal. It's kind of nice. And then the pulk is nice fiberglass on the bottom, kind of a standard pulk. Zips down here. Usually I have a carabiner on here, but for some reason I have it hanging from up here. They're just nice and easy to grab when you got big mittens on. Everything zips up, everything fits on the inside except your skis and your snowshoes if you're not wearing them at the time. All right. That out of the way, I tend to be a rather unorganized person, so I'm going to show you my winter camping list. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and I move it around a little bit every year. I add gear, I take gear off depending on my experience, or if it's colder or warmer that year. So this is from 2008, where the highest temperature was -10. I think it got down to -40 that year. So I want to sit here and explain this. So this is my list. I'll scroll it up so you can see the whole thing. So here I wrote highest temperature was -10, so I know what I'm doing. Everything that has a C on here, backwards C, that means that gets thrown in the pulk, not packed in anything. And then, for example, these are all my stuff sacks, and the blue stuff sack has a B by it. So anything that goes in that has a B by it, which there's nothing. Now my backpack has a triangle or a rectangle over here. So anything along here, over here, that has a rectangle, that goes in that. Anything that has a straight dash is what I wear when I first go. All right. So I'll kind of do a scroll up here just so you can get the list. All right. So that's that, and I'm going to be going through that. I'm going to be going through this side first, and then the middle, then the kind of the extra or the smaller things. First, the ones with the large dash by them are what I wear when I'm out skiing. So let me go through that first. You want a pair of silk liner socks, which I don't have with me. Well, first of all, this is a stuff sack, Granite Gear stuff sack. You want these when you have a pulk, because then you can cinch them down and really tighten up what's in there. And when you get to where you're going, you can pull them out. Just don't use a regular sack, otherwise everything's going to be super fluffy, especially with your sleeping bag. So I'm going to go feet first. And I'm just going to go through what I'm wearing skiing first, then I'll come back to when you get to camp and you get colder or whatever. I'll wear silk liner socks. I used to do silk, now I do poly because silk wears out. But silk is so nice to wear, so they're kind of cool. And then I'll just do, these are really like poly, they're not even wool, they're just poly socks. And really thin, or fairly thin. And I'll put 2 pair on if I want 2 pair. You don't want heavy wool socks, heavy socks when you're just going, because you want everything to be as thin as possible so it can dry out. So you've got your socks there. What else? You've got, I used to do waterproof socks, but I didn't like those. What you want to do is you want to put bags over your socks and then your foot into your ski boot. This is my ski boot. I wear it for a hiking boot. It's not necessarily as wide as some hiking cross-country ski boots can get. So what happens is when your foot is in here, it sweats, right? And so what you want to do is you want to keep that sweat off of your boot. And actually, sometimes I'll put this over my silk liner sock. Sometimes I'll do a wool sock over my foot, then this over it, then another wool sock. And I kind of vary it. I'm not sure exactly the best formula for me, but what this does is it keeps the moisture in by your foot, and it doesn't let any moisture get on this, because when it's like 10 degrees or below 10 degrees, this is not going to get wet from the snow around you. Any snow that falls on this is just going to brush off if it's insulated well from your foot. And that's the purpose of this. Once this gets wet from your foot, from your feet perspiration, then you're going to be a lot colder. And plus, these are harder to get on. If you've ever sweat in one of these and let them sit out overnight, winter camping, and try to get your foot into them, it's like, you know, putting your foot into an ice shoe. So these are critical. I'll take about 10 of them or so. I mean, they pack up. You can just rubber band around them, and it doesn't take any room at all to throw 10 of them together. And if one of them gets a little hole in it, then you use another one. From there, you have your... okay, so one pair... so very, very thin, long underwear. I have thick, long underwear on here because it was going to be pretty darn cold. I didn't think I'd ever get down to just the thin pair of long underwear and my ski pants. I probably was wrong on that. So typically I wear a very thin pair of long underwear and then ski pants. Now the ski pants I'm wearing them, and they're windbreak on the front, not windbreak. See, can't hear that, can hear that, can't hear that. Okay, windbreak on the front, not windbreak on the back. Pretty standard for cross-country skiing. Never wear cotton. Okay, if you don't know that already, never ever wear cotton. Cotton absorbs water and it doesn't let go. Okay, The whole purpose of wearing a silk liner sock and very thin long underwear is any moisture on you can get absorbed layers and layers out and then evaporate. Because nothing is going to evaporate from the weather. It's all going to evaporate from your body heat. So you want that. Calf gaiters. These I let my son wear, and I ended up wearing because they're really hard to work. They've got the zipper that's in the back of your leg, and then they've got a snap on the back of your leg. So when you're sitting there and say it's -20, -30, you're fidgeting with your hands out and trying to zip something up the back of your leg, and you're trying to do this snap that's full of ice and all this. I don't like these at all. They're fine. These are great if you're going to be sitting in a chalet and putting them on and then heading out cross-country skiing someday, but they don't work. My standard ones, which you can tell I got a little too close to the fire with once, have Velcro on the front. They've got a snap on the top and a snap on the bottom, but they're right where you, right in front of you. So it's a bit easier to use. The very best gaiters are the ones that Velcro on the side, because these will bunch up around your foot and snow can get through. I've become pretty good about not letting that happen. But Velcro above a zipper any day on calf gaiters especially. For my torso, I put a pair of heavy long underwear. I probably wouldn't do that anymore. Thin long underwear, I can see through this as your base layer. And then maybe the most critical piece of clothing is your sweater. I can see through this sweater, and it's not thick, but it's fairly thick, and it's wool. If you can't handle wool, then you can try some heavy poly. But you want to go. You can find a lot of this stuff at Goodwill and just let it sit around for a month so it doesn't smell like Goodwill anymore. But what you want is a thick sweater that you can see through. So you don't want it heavy. Anything heavy is going to trap the moisture. If you have like a thick layer that you can see through, obviously it's not going to be this thick, and then you throw a windbreaker over that, you've got a great insulation layer. And then if it's wool, or if the wind can blow through it, it's going to evaporate for you. And so then you won't get warm. I mean, you won't get cold. You will stay warm. You won't get cold. Now over this is a custom buy I did. This is my wintergreen anorak, and this is awesome. It's got a hood. Hoods are great. But what it is it's very thin, and it's 2 layers. And the custom thing about this anorak is I don't know if you anyway. It's got 2 layers, right? And it's not hemmed at the bottom. And this works better than you'd even think. Your sweat will evaporate through this first layer, hit the cold air between the layers, and come falling out. And you wouldn't believe how well that works. I love this thing. I'm always wearing it. Because it's very thin, it lets the wind through. But like I said, if I put that on over the sweater, then it gives me a really nice insulated layer. So then so if I'm skiing and I get warm, I'll take that off. And then I'll just go down to just the sweater and the long underwear. For my head, 2 6-inch headbands. Where is my headbands? Okay, so I have a very, very thin headband that I'll wear, right? And so these headbands are great because you can just put them right on, put them right over you, and ski around like that. And it's very thin, so it's going to dry off. And then I'll have a little bit of a heavier one with me. I typically will, though, instead of that second headband, I'll wear this hat because I really like this hat. It's not practical. But, I mean, it's like Christmas. You're going out winter camping and you're in the snow, so why don't you play the part? For your hands, Again, your base layer on your hands, these are going to get soaking wet. So you have these very, very thin as you can find gloves. Thin, 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 thin poly gloves. Thin, thin, very thin. These are REI gloves. Very important. And then over that, you get some, these are windbreaker gloves also from REI. You can tell that they've had a little bit too, when they got a little too close to the fire, and I've been wearing them for too many years. This might be my third pair of this. I love this brand. I got the Windstop last time. Manzella Windstop gloves. So what you do is you put these on, put the Windstop gloves over them, and then you're set. And if any of them get wet, you have 2 light pairs instead of 1 heavy pair. When I took my son camping, I bought these really crappy pair of gloves like earlier in the winter for him, and they kind of fell apart. So I just took everything out of the inside, and these are just nylon. So he had a pair of thin gloves. So this is a very cheap substitute for what I have. I think mine are like $20 or something like that. So they're not expensive anyway. If it's colder out, I had these before they were famous in all the outdoor stores. So I'm just saying, go to Goodwill, buy a pair of poly socks, poly winter socks, or if you can get wool socks. But wool doesn't last as long. So you just cut the bottom off, you cut a thumb hole, and you've got wrist warmers. Bring 2 pair of these because you'll want to wear a very dry pair at night. These are great. These add, you wouldn't believe, I would say they add like 5 or 10 degrees to your outfit. And I'm serious about that. You're just the way your wrists stay warm. If what you've got works to 0, these will bring you down to -10. Maybe an exaggeration, but. Okay, so I have the windbreak mittens on there as well. So if you like mittens, because if it's a little bit colder, then you'll do windbreak mittens over gloves. So these are the Segoy windbreak mittens. Same thing. I'll have the poly thin layer on and then put my hands in here. But then your fingers stay a little bit closer together and they're a bit warmer. Now let's go back to the top. So if you're winter camping, water is your enemy. Sweat is your enemy. Okay, so you're coming into camp. Say you're going to camp out there and you're a half a mile away right now. So you see your camp and you're hiking and you're sweating and you're sweating and you're sweating. When you can see your camp a half a mile away, you stop. You might grab a little Cliff Bar or something, but you stop and you wait for yourself to get cold because all that moisture is evaporating off of you. You just kind of move around, let it go. And then once you start getting cold a little bit, remember, clothes don't keep you warm. Movement keeps you warm. You're still pulling your pulk. So once you start getting cold a little bit, you hike. You go fast, fast, fast until you warm up again. Not to where you're sweating, but till you warm up again. And then you stop again. And if you do this, I usually do it 2 or 3 times. Then by the time you get to your campsite, you're fairly dry, or comparatively dry. If you go straight into your campsite and you're sweating as you get there, oh, I'm so happy I'm here, you're going to be cold because everything's just going to drip onto you and you're not moving your body around as much anymore and you're just going to get cold. So once you get to the campsite, don't put on anything down. Don't put your down vest on. Don't put your down coat on. You want to just keep moving in what you have until you dry out. Go get firewood. Go do whatever. Keep moving. You might put on an extra layer of something, but not down. Down traps all the moisture in with you, and it will not dry out, especially if it's -10, -20 or so. Let's see. So let's go to, you've eaten, you're starting to get cold, the sun is set. Then you're gonna change into your evening attire, which for me is, I used to bring, let's start with feet again. So I used to bring these, now I bring these. These are good old Sorels, or however you pronounce it. I love these bottoms. If you can get those bottoms, do it. If you're wearing boots with felt liners, these can get wet. So what you want to do is you want to make sure you're not sweating at all. You've done everything you're going to do for the evening where you're sweating. Maybe you could wear these out and hike and go grab some firewood, but if you're going out there and all of a sudden you realize you're sweating, stop. I mean, these are for not sweating in at all, okay? These felt liners you can find at Goodwill or whatever, and what I've done is I've cut out bottoms of these, and if it's going to be really cold, I'd put them in the bottom of here, and then I have an extra build-up layer. It works great because it's not just a sock. I mean, those things keep your feet that much farther off of the cold. So I used to do that, but these are so heavy and big, and they take up, half of your pulk pretty much. So I don't do these anymore. When Arctic explorers go out, they have custom fit booties that go inside their boots, okay? And they're closed cell foam, which means no moisture gets in or out. Now, so I went out and I bought a pair of these. This is from Cook Custom Sewing in Lionel Lakes, Minnesota, I want to say. These are awesome. These are just awesome. They've got 3 tabs, one for the bottom, tighten up your toes, one for the top, tighten up your mid, and then one for the very top that will keep snow out of the top of them. They don't come with liners. They come empty. What do I have in here? I think I have the white liner. Okay, so I think they come with these. That's kind of flattened out. I might get a new one. Once again, if it's colder out, you can add a couple layers to the bottom. But typically these go in. I first made these, but then I put these around. They give them better arch support, and they work just perfect. It looks kind of like ad hoc, which it is, but it works great. So those are in, and what I did is basically I went out and I got just a mat. This is actually open cell foam, but I just got a big mat of foam, closed cell foam, and I cut out foot contours. Dan Cook actually told me that that's the best thing to do. And then I got some, you can get, I think I used 3M adhesive on here. I just got some vinyl, and I sprayed it with 3M adhesive, and then I put it on here. I did make a mistake where I thought putting it on the inside was a good idea because I wanted like sealed on the inside, sealed on the outside. But what happens is your foot going in and out, it peels it right off. So it looks chunky and whatever. They're so warm. I mean, minus 40 sitting around the fire. I mean, even not sitting around the fire, waking up at minus 40. My feet are never cold. And what I put inside these is I have my regular wool socks, and then I have a pair of heavy wool socks. Now these are your magical socks. They like go in here during your trip, and they never come out unless they go on your feet. They never touch snow. You never sweat in them. And so when it's really cold, I'll put a light pair of wool socks inside here. I'll change out. I won't wear my liners or my other socks. I'll take those fully off and they'll freeze and whatever, and I'll put them on when they're frozen in weird shapes. But once I put these on, I have no moisture around my feet. And I'm toasty warm. It's great. I don't even need my gaiters. I think I do wear my gaiters anyway, just because, for safety. So I went through cross-country boots. Oh, foot liners. Yeah, you can just get little extra foot liners, and if you want to put them in, these are those hard ones, and I have been putting those in my mucklucks. Just give it a hard sole, and I don't know if I like it or not. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's great. I think it's great whether I do it or not. But these are my sons, and so if you think you're going to be doing something in boots where they're going to get wet, you put these inside the actual liners of the boots, and then your feet will sweat onto these, not into the liners. And so if you're going to get these wet for whatever reason, if you're not as strict as I am or whatever, just put liners inside, and it just keeps that much more moisture out of it, keeps them that much more dry. Let's see, bags for feet, went through that. Now with pants okay, so for nighttime, I've got these these are my Polish army pants. And they zip down the sides, and you just hop in. You don't need to take your boots off or anything like that. If you're not as lucky as I am to stumble across a pair of these, then make sure you find warm pants that will fit over your boots, because you really don't want to take your boots off. You just don't. So when it gets colder, put these on right over your ski pants. And then when it gets colder than that, I have suspender. Overalls would work better, but I just have never gotten to the overalls. So these are suspenders. They just keep everything inside you. So I will have, where's my torso? No, my legs. And then I have a pair of fleece pants, which are somewhere around here, but looks like I'm not going to find them. Then I will also have, so if I have those green Polish army pants, fleece pants, and then my these are like XXXL snow pants, so they fit over just everything. And so then that's the outer shell layer. There's really not much in there. Then I mean, you're going to be warm. As backup, when it's warmer out, like when we went out and took out my son, he learned about hypothermia because it was 25 degrees and it was snowing on us, so we were just wet. And he did what most people do, is he stopped moving because he's like cold, so he just kind of sat there, and he got even colder. So on days like that, I have this pair of very thin waterproof pants, and they pack up pretty darn tight, so I can take them on warmer trips if I feel like I'm going to get wet, because getting wet is not fun when you're out there. A key. Yes, I wouldn't have brought my waterproof pants on that trip. So back to this thing. If you cut a section of this, and I have one around here somewhere, that fits your width, and it goes from, you can shove it down the back of your snow pants, and it goes up to about here, you'll be so warm. Because what you do is you stick it in there, because that's where all the cold air gets in, and you walk around with it, and then you go down and sit at the fire, and that's where cold air, it hits your lower back. And so if you have that in there, you can lean against the snow, you're insulated, you've got all that stuff. Of course, you will bring a Crazy Creek, standard Crazy Creek deal, which I'll get into later. Okay, so your torso. Basically, I'll be wearing the long underwear, the sweater, and then after that, an underappreciated item is a down vest. If you have a down vest and you put it on underneath a down coat, you don't need as much heat on your arms as you think you do. This all smells like campfire, so I'm happy right now. I'm in my happy place. if you wear this, this is a cheap, like, Walmart something $10 down. It's really a crappy vest, but it gives you that bulk. Okay, now this outer is a nicer REI. It's not top of the line, but it's good. It's REI down. I don't know, whatever fill. I think people go overboard on their fill numbers, but the one thing my buddies have that I don't is a hood. If you bring everything on your torso, if everything you bring has a hood, you'll be a happier camper, literally. When it gets cold and you have a down hood and no wind gets down your neck, it makes a big deal. I don't have that luxury because, you know, I just have never gotten around to getting a down coat. Now your head. So when I get into camp, this is all wet. And it really doesn't dry off. I mean, sometimes it does, but it really doesn't. So I typically will take it off and try and get my hair dry enough, and then I'll switch over to my other wool hat. And so this, again, just like your socks, this is your dry wool hat. Okay, your dry wool hat. And then I have a red balaclava. No, I won't wear that typically. That's kind of a backup, that red balaclava I have on the list. So I'll be wearing this, and I'll be wearing one or two of the neck gaiters. And then I'll be wearing, this is my old school one. I bought a rabbit hat, and then my top of my head was always cold, so I bought a down coat from Goodwill again, cut it up, and I put it in here. And so now this thing is like super warm, but I have become more fond of my wintergreen cap that I bought on their discount rack, and I was so excited to buy it I didn't realize it was like a 2XL, so I can't really wear it around. But wearing this over another hat is perfect. And then if I've got that, and I've got my, and so my down vest, my down coat, and then I'll put my wintergreen coat over that, because then my wintergreen coat has a hood. And so I put the hood over this, and I'm perfectly fine. I've got a couple of neck gaiters I'll be wearing. So that's that. What else? Hands. Hands are fun. Hands you're always using. Okay, so hands get tricky and they're fun. So you've got you're always wearing your thin poly gloves. If they get wet, they're gonna dry off. You never have to change out of those. Well, I take that back, sort of. Fingerless gloves are great for around the campfire, because if you've got fingerless gloves and then you've got another pair of heavier gloves, these aren't my windbreak gloves. These are Gore-Tex, and they're not spendy. I got them. I didn't get them at a high-end store. It might have been Walmart or something, and they work better than any of those REI or Midwest Mountaineering. Midwest Mountaineering actually is the best place to ever go shopping. But if you don't live in Minneapolis or St. Paul, then you're out of luck. The first time I went to Midwest Mountaineering in the mid-90s, someone from Ann Bancroft's team was in there looking at gloves. She's like, and she had a Time magazine, and she was looking at the cover of the Time magazine, and she was trying to find the same gloves that Ann Bancroft was wearing, because Ann Bancroft is from this area as well. And I'm like, okay, I got to keep going here. And truthfully, that's the way to go. So typically around the fire, I'll have my thin poly gloves, all my windbreak gloves, and they fit right in here. So I've got 3 pair of gloves on inside, and so if I need to use an axe, this is fine. If I do need to eat, I might just pull out and use my windbreak gloves, whatever. And so I've got these. I don't really do mittens. Other people do mittens. And then I have my Granite Gear plunge mitts. Okay, so these plunge mitts typically go like really long. So I actually sewed the top of these So I inverted them and sewed them. And the same thing with the thumb. The thumb kind of goes out to here, so I just kind of shoved it in here and sewed it in. And you know, these are like, you know, lobster claws, so they're not functional, but they keep you warm. And then if you want to pull your glove out, you know, you're fine there. If you want to pull your other gloves out, you're fine there. What I did with these is these come with a couple pair of mittens. So I believe, yeah, one pair of mittens is in there. It's a felt pair of mittens. And what I did with, it came with 2 felt mittens. I took one of the felt mittens and just, I think I sewed it to the top here. Either that, I sewed it to the back of the mittens, because they come like 2 full mittens, but really the front of your hand doesn't get cold. So I just doubled up on the back, and it's noticeably different, because I would notice the back of my hands getting cold. For very special occasions, very, very special occasions, I've probably worn these since 2000, maybe 5 times when I'm camping. So these are down mittens. Now they're not magic, because if your hands are cold, it means you're not keeping them warm. Okay. So you have to be keeping your hands warm some other way. You have to be moving around. But these, putting these inside your plunge mitts, oh yeah. I mean, it's like, and then you have your liner gloves on. It's like, but then again, same thing with down. I mean, these will compact really tight. Same thing with down though. If you have any moisture in your cold hands, in your cold liner gloves, and you put them in there, everything starts warming up because you're jumping around or doing whatever, then the moisture whoosh, goes right into the down, and you're messed up. Okay, last thing on here, I have leather fire gloves, but we'll go through those when I go through that section. Here's a even you don't realize how much you don't need to heat your arms. Even when you're out skiing and you're getting a little cold, put on just a thin vest, and you'll be amazed at how much warmer it just holds another layer of heat in. Especially if you've got that wool sweater, you put that over there, and